Welcome, PI Nation. You're listening to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. Here are your hosts, Matt, Evaldo, and Deshawn.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show, the Politically Incorrect Podcast Show. My name is Evaldo Barros. Right here in the middle is Matthew Camara. And right there, just ahead of me, is Deshawn Barros. We are back. It's been long and awaited for. You guys have been waiting for our return amidst this whole COVID situation. We are back again for another great show. We've got some good things we're going to talk about today. But let me go to my co-host and see how everyone's doing today. Matthew, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back, and hopefully we can just jump into the swing of things like we weren't on hiatus for a while.
Amen to that. Deshawn, my brother.
A long-awaited return and a long hiatus we certainly took. And I'm so happy to be back doing the show.
Amen to that. So I guess we'll kick off the show talking about Joe Biden and his new VP pick.
Sleepy Joe.
Kamala Harris, senator from California. How do we feel about that, guys? How do we feel about that?
My personal opinion, I think the Democrats gave up a long time ago. I think this is just, they know that they're going to lose, and it's just, they keep adding people or suggesting people that really shouldn't be in that position. You look at Kamala Harris, right? She polled, I think, almost 0% by the time she ended up giving up. She's really not a good fit. The media is trying to paint her as a moderate. We know she's not. What do you think, Deshawn?
Yeah, I just think that we know Kamala Harris is a radical leftist. And what's funny is during the Democratic debate, she totally ripped Joe Biden in pieces by calling him a rapist and a racist. So for them to be now somehow...
Yeah, it just goes to show that that party is willing to sell their soul for any type of promotion or anything that gives them, glorification, I guess.
So my question is, I know we're talking about this and also, but when the election comes up in November, I mean, a lot of what's going on, the Democrats are pushing for mail voting. No longer in person, but mail-in votes.
Yeah.
Mail-in, yep.
Do you think that there's a lot of room for fraud?
Absolutely. I mean, we've already seen it in places where they've already tried to do mail-in voting where the system can't even handle it. So you're getting votes that aren't even being counted. You're seeing cases like in Pennsylvania where in one election, 20% of the vote was fraud. A woman was just arrested for harvesting about 400 ballots for Democrats. There is a lot of fraud there. And anything that the Democrats are pushing, you know that there's some kind of evil motive behind it. I hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Weren't there states that they tried doing a trial run?
Yeah, and it failed horribly because the mail system is just not capable of doing that amount of votes or that amount of mail in such a short period. Because you got to remember, all those votes are coming in around the same time period, and it that's a lot to be accounted for and to be able to process all that in one night. They had elections, I think, in like Wisconsin and things like that, and it didn't work out.
And one of the things that they appear to be doing is they're trying to confuse or conflate the difference between mail-in and absentee.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absentee just means that during the time of the election, you're not going to be in your home state.
Yes.
So people are making a big deal about President Trump likes absentee voting. Well, he doesn't have a choice because his home state is Florida. And obviously he's the president of the United States and he's living in Washington, D.C. So how else is he supposed to cast his vote? Take a flight down there on the day of election and cast his vote?
Right.
That's much different than just sending a mail-in vote to anybody and everybody. People who wouldn't normally make the effort to go out and vote on their own. And to me, I think voting is a right, but it's also a privilege. We should be exercising that right to get out of our homes and go vote in person. There's people in Iraq that avoid suicide bombings just to go vote. And, to me, it's just another political ploy. by the Democrats.
And you know what? This is a perfect segue into how COVID-19 has been politicized, because the
Yeah.
mail-in voting has been specifically geared towards those people who are fearful of contracting coronavirus. And
Right.
I totally understand, but just like Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a racist, we've had all of these super massive protests for Black Lives Matter, and I didn't see a single person wearing a mask then.
Well, not only that, I mean,
Right.
Walmart hasn't shut down, Home Depot hasn't shut down, and
No.
people have no problem standing 6 feet or closer during that time. Why can't you go to a poll booth? The last time I voted for Trump, when I went to go to my polling station, I was maybe a second person in line, and I was in and out within 5 minutes, maybe less. I understand that there's going to be some stations where there's a lot more people, but that's not the case everywhere. You're more likely to probably get the virus standing at Walmart than you are voting.
Maybe at a McDonald's drive-through, because I tell you, you'll wait longer in a McDonald's drive-through than you do to vote.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I mean that's ridiculous to me. I remember telling somebody, it says my university shut down, right? My entire university shut down, but Louisiana Chicken, Popeye's chicken sandwich was still open. I was still able to go in and buy a chicken sandwich from Popeye's, and yet my entire university was shut down. I couldn't go to school, and my church was shut down. I couldn't go to church. So that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
The whole mask mandate it's relative to what you deem important. So
I guess
everybody's
chicken
biased.
sandwiches are the most
everyone's
important thing.
biased, has a bias when it comes to the mask mandate.
That's just crazy.
So maybe this is why Kamala and Joe came out the other day issuing a mask mandate for the next 3 months. Do you guys think that ties in just as the election period is coming up?
Yeah, because I think they're
With
trying
COVID?
to stir their base. They're trying hard with the media to make it seem like the virus is a lot worse
Yeah.
than
Right.
what it actually is. You know, they want you to believe, and they want people to be so fearful to think that if you step outside of your home, that you're just gonna croak in the middle of the street.
Right.
It's all a part of their ploy. That's why Biden is trying not to do any debates. Trump was actually trying to get additional debates, but they declined it.
And he wanted to get a debate going before the first vote,
Right.
mail-in ballot or absentee ballot would go in.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
You know, because I think how many states are going to be utilizing that initially?
I don't know what the
It's
number.
quite a few.
I would guess it would be every state that normally is blue, a blue state, when it comes to elections. That would be my guess.
But like Deshaun said, we see the Biden team riding this Corona train.
Well, it's
Until the
their
election.
only chance at winning. Let's be honest.
It's their only ploy to really be
They
able
can't
to
win.
Cause chaos,
Yeah, they can't win without
Fear.
stealing the election. Is when it comes to.
and then they'll try to frame Trump to be as someone that doesn't care about people's health and concerns. So why would he
Correct.
want them to go out and vote? Let's all just have mail-in voting
Yep.
for the safety of
Yeah.
America.
I mean, you look at Detroit and Chicago, where they don't even know the actual counts because of how much fraud there is over there.
Right.
You know, because what happens, and I guess this apparently happens in California too, is they do what's called ballot harvesting, where they pay people to go to people's homes to pick up their ballots, and what they do is they'll drop these ballots off at the polling stations at like the last minute, so that they have to be. So there's actually been cases where it looks like the Republican is going to win, but all of a sudden there's these trucks that show up with these what they call ballot harvesting, and they're all apparently they're all for Democrats, you know, in those harvestings. And it's actually caused the Democrats to win in some cases.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in the national polls, you see Biden's up, 7+ or whatever, and
Yeah.
sometimes
like
I get a
10
little
points.
I get suspicious. Like, really, is that even real?
We know we can't believe polls. I actually saw one
At this point.
for a local poll saying that Biden was leading Trump by 36 or 38 points in Massachusetts, which is funny because on my street alone, I have 3 Trump signs from neighbors, including my own, and I've yet to see one Biden sign anywhere near me or in front of me. And when I went to the Trump store, it was jamming. There was a lot of people going in and out of that place.
There's a lot more excitement about Trump.
So I think you're going to see a lot of secret Democrats, or what I should say, Democrats secretly voting for Trump this time around.
But let's get back to Kamala, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
We've mentioned a few things about her already, how she failed in her own
Yep.
campaign.
How would you feel, Valdo, if you were picked because you were black? How would that make you feel? If that's the major reason why you were considered.
She was literally picked because she's a woman and she's black.
Right. So there's a couple of answers to that as to
Mhm.
how I would feel. It depends on what kind of person I am. If I'm a common sense person that strictly views things in the lens of merit and not by the way you look, right? Then I would
Mhm.
say that's pretty racist or
Right.
degrading, because you're only picking me because I check off a box, not necessarily because of the skill set I bring to your team.
Right.
But on the other side, if I'm a person that looks at things through the prism of race and entitlement, then I would love it. I would love it because finally people of color are getting a chance to be up, in a high position, even though they may not necessarily be the best person for the job.
Right. So, what do you think about the revelation that she's not actually black?
And isn't that interesting, right? Because
Revelation.
I was gonna
What do you
I
think
was
of
gonna
Revelation?
mention that the black people, right, the so-called blacks, are not really thrilled with her because they don't see her as like you said, like a traditional black person in the United States.
Yeah.
She really is. Her parents are from India and Jamaica,
Right.
so she's not a typical like African American.
And
And her parents owned slaves.
yeah, I heard about 120 of them.
Amazing.
Really?
So by the Democrats' own or by the left-wing progressives' own standards, she should not ever have a statue
Right.
because it would be torn down because she owns slaves. She's not a traditional black.
So I've never heard that. So her parents own slaves.
They own slaves.
How old is Kamala Harris? Because it looks like
She's probably in her 50s,
Yeah.
I would say.
Really? They own slaves in other countries, right? Not here in the United States, of course.
I would assume probably in other countries. Maybe.
Okay.
But like you said, she fits a box, she's a woman of color.
Right.
And that's what Joe Biden said he would pick. He put
Yep.
himself in that box.
The other thing that's funny is she, the things that she campaigns on is the fact that she incarcerated so many black people. Yet that's supposedly what the Democrat movement is about not doing that to black people, right? So it's like they hired the person that they're completely against.
Mm.
They're against slavery, yet her family owned slaves. They wanted somebody who was black, but she's not black. And then they don't want black people to be incarcerated, yet she was the Attorney General of California, where she prided herself on incarcerating people, even to the point where she would hide evidence to get people convicted. So it's just interesting.
It is interesting, and she's not sincere as to what she believes. Meaning, she flip flops a lot. She'll be whatever it is you want her to be.
Right.
Yeah.
In the moment.
She's like a chameleon.
Chameleon.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that goes back to her claiming that Joe Biden was a rapist and a racist. So, but all of a sudden,
Yes.
she's the VP.
And now she loves Joe Biden.
Yeah.
She's absolutely in love with Joe Biden after she just ripped him a new one in the Democratic debate. That's amazing to me.
And they're painting her. They're trying to reframe her as a moderate, as you can see
Right,
the mainstream
yeah.
media doing.
Absolutely.
So what do we know then? We know that we're not a fan of Kamala Harris, and the black community is not. And we'll see how the Bernie bros and the Bernie supporters, the left-wing progressives, feel about her. Although they might like her because she is really progressive
Right.
by nature.
Mm.
So we'll see how this pick turns out. I don't know. Supposedly she brought him up in the polls a little bit, but
I don't know.
You know what's going to be interesting though is to see her on the debate stand with Mike Pence. I heard. Listen, don't let Mike Pence fool you. I heard from somebody that when he was running for governor in Indiana, that he can get really Mike Tyson like.
Yeah.
He can go from really lowly and meek, then really tear it up on you. So he's really articulate. He's smart. He can really methodically get the points across.
I think he's done well for Trump,
He
and
does.
I'm glad that he kept him as
Yes,
the
I'm
VP, because
glad
there was
too.
rumors. Honestly, I think it was the media just trying to kind of put like distrust between them,
Mm.
doing what they normally do. But But Trump sees right through that garbage.
because he's the perfect counterbalance for Trump.
Absolutely, yep.
Because he's better articulated, he's smart, so he brings that other balance. Because Trump is more of like a bombastic entertainer, kind of fiery guy.
Yeah.
So
Definitely
Mike
get
Pence
you
is a
going.
good balance.
But as far as being able to articulate points and policy and how that will impact the American people, I think Mike Pence does a better job of that for sure. I just also think that with this whole black thing going on, how Kamala Harris is now her running mate, I also think it's very evident to also point out the fact that you have kids dying. You know what I'm saying? Who are white. You know what I mean? A 5-year-old kid was shot and killed.
Yeah, let's
in
talk
front of
about
his
that.
two sisters.
So what's his name again?
His name is Cannon Hinnate.
Yeah.
And he was killed at 5 years old at gunpoint by a black man who was supposedly a neighbor of the family. And this has gotten no media attention as far as I'm concerned.
If it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have known about this child. It would have been very...
If social media was not around, we would not hear anything about this.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is so evident that the media in this country is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah. And I was actually talking to Evaldo. I want to bring up a double standard. On one hand, I agree with the title, but at the same time, we know what the agenda is. So I was looking at a title because somebody actually, one of the mainstream media decided to actually cover it. I'm not sure if it's MSNBC or CBC or CNBC that covered it, but they ended up, the title was 5-year-old murdered while playing in his yard. So on one hand, it's good because nowhere in there does it mention the race of the child and color of the child or the killer.
Yeah.
However, we know that that's typically not how media runs. They purposely usually force in black man killed by white man.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of question it at that point. On one hand, it's right. That's how it should be. But why are they not including the race for this particular case? Is it because it doesn't fit a narrative? Am I thinking about it too much? What do you guys think?
No, I think that you're totally correct because we have all of these massive stories about how black people are killed by white people. And it seems to me that why wouldn't you include race in this point? Because this is a 5-year-old child who just happens to be white, who was killed by just so happens to be a black man. So I think that them not putting the race in there is them trying to negate this as anything important because it doesn't fit a particular narrative.
Right.
It doesn't fit the narrative of victimhood that they can continue to push on the black community. Hey, you guys are victimized by the police. You guys are victimized by somebody else.
Right.
But now this is a white life, somebody who's white and is not even in double digits as far as age and is killed by a grown man who happens to be black.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know everything about the guy who shot him, but I think that you have to be one deranged person to shoot a 5-year-old in cold blood in front of his sisters.
Absolutely. I think these are the occasions where if it was up to me, there wouldn't be a trial. It would be a firing squad. Obviously, we live in America, so there has to be a trial. I agree with that. But even at the end of that trial, I think there should be a firing squad or a hanging, or I think this is where capital punishment comes into play. I don't believe capital punishment works for every case, especially where there's doubt. But I mean, when you have a man that goes up to a 5-year-old child and puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out in front of his two sisters, I can't imagine how those parents are feeling. I would be so angry. I probably would have killed a man myself or died trying.
Oh, man. So, good news, and good news, though. There have been $560,000 worth of donations to that family in North Carolina.
And that's good, but at the same time, it never brings your kid back.
It'll never.
I think it's good, but
that's just in better news. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just for the fact that family's going to be all right, financially and all of that, all those different aspects. But as far as the pain of losing the child, there's nothing that could ever replace that. And to me, I feel like this is another wake up call for the American people to realize how bad the media is in this country, and how a lot of things where they will throw race in there, particularly for a political agenda, particularly to target a certain group of people. And in this case, why wouldn't you throw the race card in there?
And I would be okay with the title if it was done for everybody. You know, bad cop kills innocent man instead of white cop kills black man.
Yeah.
But that's not how it is.
I think at this point I'm just playing their game. If you want to label George Floyd and all of these other people, black man killed by a white cop, well, black man kills 5-year-old white kid. You know what I mean? I think if we're going to do that, let's keep sticking to the narrative then, because that seems to be the way you guys are pushing all of your other political agendas. Right. Why aren't you using this story to push your political agenda? Because they seem to stand on the graves of everybody, right? They use George Floyd as a martyr. Why isn't this person? And I don't think we should get people who are white to all fired up and anything like that, or anybody who's black fired up. But the point really is that if you want to use George Floyd as a particular narrative, why aren't you using this kid too?
Well, we know what the agenda is. They're painting a narrative. They want to paint a picture that whites are just killing blacks at this enormous rate. And they know, because they know most people won't go in and look at statistics, because statistics actually show that blacks are 3 or 4 times more likely by numbers to commit homicide.
Right.
And it's like 2018 was 2,600 versus 300 something whites.
And it was a high percentage. I think 45 or 50% of the homicides were committed by blacks.
By blacks. And
you're thinking, well, what about the other 50%? Well, you have to think that the blacks make up 13% of the population, so that's a huge number.
Right, that is a huge number. And since they know most of their audience is emotionally driven, or they don't have the time to really look at stats and study stuff, they're going to push this narrative, which is why they won't cover this kid in the same light as they would someone. Black.
But not only that, there was a black Trump supporter that was killed in cold blood as well.
Right.
Yet he didn't get any media attention.
Because the idea is, like Spike Lee said one time, is there's a modern day lynching going on of blacks, which is not true, because like blacks are committing most of the homicides, most of the crimes.
Well, I think one of the statistics I heard was like, Black African American males make up 9% of the population of the United States of America. 9%. Yeah, and they commit about 50% of the murders in the United States. 9% of the population is committing over almost 50% of murders. I'm just talking about murders. Mm-hmm. Homicides. Over 50%. That is ridiculous. That is absurd. That is absurd that 9% of the population would commit over 50% of the murder.
But they want to highlight what percentage of white cops kill blacks. Was it like 0.001%?
Last year, I think there was 9 unarmed black men. Yeah.
And we're not downgrading the fact that some of these people are killed unjustly, and some of it is just wrong, for sure. But I think that what we're trying to get at is, let's not play the race card. A way I say it is, if you're gonna play the race card, play it with every story. Then don't just highlight one story.
Don't play it at all. But we know that they're not going to, because they need to cause division. That's how that side has always run their political operations, by causing division and strife. That's what they need. We just need to educate people and find ways to communicate better than they do what we're trying to communicate about what's really going on.
Right.
That's our best shot.
But Evaldo, you wanted to talk about George Floyd?
George Floyd. There's a new body cam footage out there. You probably will not find it on YouTube any longer. You'd have to probably go online on some independent news source and try to find. I heard about this on the Steven Crowder show. So this is a footage that the Attorney General in Minnesota, Keith Ellison, did not want revealed, because it wouldn't make his case for what happened with this case.
Right.
Because it shows the story in a different light, and it gives more perspective as to what happened. I mean, they show things in this footage where they were really, really being nice to him and trying to have him get in the car, even though he said he couldn't breathe. They were like, "We'll put down the window for you. they had his a girlfriend that was there with him saying, stop resisting, just listen to them. They were really pleading with him. The cops were really being nice to him and talking
Right.
to him and treating him, no better than he probably deserved, because they just wanted him to get in the car and just go to the police station. But he seemed like a man that was in his last run with the law, and he really did not want to go to jail. They showed him just falling on the ground, uh, just a different light of what really happened that would cause you not to believe. The
Right.
initial report was that they just woke up that morning, the police that is, and decided to kill a black man. They were
Yeah.
being rude to him, and they just wanted to kill him.
Yep.
So
But
this will change the dynamic of the case going forward.
this is why I'm so careful to jump on the bandwagons of everybody who sees one side of the story and doesn't get the full attention of it, because now we're seeing these what actually happened, where he wasn't able to breathe while he was standing up, while nothing was happening.
Right.
Yet that was the cause of this movement, was the fact that a white cop was kneeling on him to the point where he could not breathe, and that's what killed him.
And it even showed Officer Chauvin reasoning with him, because it's reported that they've known each other over the years.
Yep.
That he was actually reasoning with him and trying to get him, hey man, this is your last route. I mean, you got to get it together here.
But then you look at like what happened to those police officers now, and honestly, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see them get off. That's my opinion.
And I have a conspiracy theory as to what their political strategy is based on that. But go ahead, continue.
I think you're going to see them get off, but at the same time, now you have 4 police officers where their lives are ruined.
Yeah.
One was labeled a racist without even there being evidence of him being a racist. Do I agree that he should have put his knee on the guy? Probably no, I don't. There could have been better ways to handle it. But when you see the full video and see what they were doing that led up to that point, you have to understand that they have to protect themselves. It becomes a frustrating job.
And he was saying he couldn't breathe from
way
the
before.
beginning.
Yep.
So he was saying it like a boy crying wolf.
Yep. But again, the media only wants to show you what they want you to see and what the narrative is to be pushed. But again, the guy's wife divorced him because the media. There's just a lot there that happened. This whole movement. You have churches jumping on the bandwagon as well, and all this is happening while we're not getting the full story. And this is why it's me personally. I don't like to jump into these kind of things because I know that there's something missing typically. And then you're seeing it happen. What the cop in Atlanta, where the black guy stole his taser and shot the taser at him, but somehow the cop is the bad guy. Like that's what's happening in this country.
He reportedly suing the mayor,
and he should, and I hope he wins.
And this is why I think everybody should be vigilant as far as where you're getting your news sources from. Because the reason why I say if you're going to use the race card, use it in every scenario is because look. You have all of these incidents with police officers, and they use the race card when really it's just people. They're just people. Same as Cannon. He's just people. But the media doesn't care about people. They want a political agenda. They want to push something.
Right.
So if that story doesn't fit their narrative, that person no longer has any value to them. So Cannon, a 5-year-old kid who got killed by a black man. And really, it doesn't. I'm using their language because this is how they're not painting it this way because it doesn't fit their agenda.
Right.
It's just a 5-year-old kid is murdered in his front lawn.
And you know why they don't want to push Cannon is because they know that that type of story is something that unites people. Because when a Democrat and a Republican looks at a 5-year-old child who's executed, they're not going to care about politics and division at that point. That's going to be something that touches them and brings us together. I think we can all agree, politics aside, that what happened to that child shouldn't have happened. No. And that's why the media isn't going to push it, because it's a uniting factor instead of a division factor.
So I want to touch on Floyd. So I think that they wanted, Keith Ellison, the DA of Minnesota, wanted to overcharge and not release the video that was just released. This was released by an independent source in like another country.
Yep.
So he wanted it done that way so they can be overcharged, get people all riled up so they can be overcharged, get them to protest and loot like they're looting to cause chaos. And then this video now gets released that will probably now provide evidence and allow those officers not to be fully charged the way that it was initially charged,
Right.
to cause yet another chaos in protest and rioting, because people are going to be upset with the decision.
Yep. I agree.
And
I
think
would
that's
agree
the
with that.
strategy, because they want more than ever chaos and destruction to occur, and they're going to use these circumstances.
And I
in
don't
these
think
cases
they
to do it.
were expecting that video to release.
They weren't, because it was released by an anonymous, I think some sort of anonymous or somebody
Yep.
from.
I believe in the
country.
United Kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got a hold of it, but I'm glad they did.
Yeah, because CBC reported this, and I think that's a British news media outlet.
Yeah. So they released it,
I'm watching it right now, actually.
and it's interesting. So there you have it, the new Floyd video.
Well, I just think that
Chaos.
black folks, you need to be more vigilant at this point. I mean, you're being used as leverage in a lot of this.
You know what the problem is, though, is most people can see through the media's lies, but the problem is a lot of people are like, they're sympathizers. They're like, I know it's kind of, they're probably using us, or they're probably wrong, they're probably pushing an agenda, but I do kind of feel where they're coming from, because, I've been discriminated. There is still racial tension, so somebody has to do something. Most people are sympathizers. That's the hump that we have to get over, for them not to have any power, the media that is, and the powers that be, because most people just sympathize because they're victimized, or they feel victimized in their own way, in their own lives somehow, and they connect with these false stories or these false movements when they come out. Even though they know that these movements are not horrible, yet they think, well, what else do we have? There's nobody else trying to push for, these movements, so somebody has to do it. I mean, I've heard people say, well, I've heard people go up to Black Lives Matter supporters and say, this is what they do. They are funded by this, and they're domestic terrorists. All these facts as to what Black Lives Matter, the leaders in the organization really is, and people still go, yeah, but they still sympathize with them.
Right.
Because it's such a powerful slogan, and it touches people. Black Lives Matter.
It's a
Yeah.
delusion.
But what has that movement done for black people? What has it done for black communities?
Nothing. But most people don't know that. They just sympathize emotionally with the movement. That's the problem. Nobody, like you said, is being vigilant. Everyone's thinking with their emotions.
Right.
But they're not paying attention to what these leaders are saying, what the organization is actually about.
There was a group of Black Lives Matters demanding that white people give up their homes to give to black people.
Yeah. Defunding the police, reparations for every black person, homes for every black person, free education for every black person, taking away the nuclear family.
Yeah. But the thing is if you're living by the government, you're already receiving most of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the leaders, like I said, in the organization is what people need to really focus on, what they're actually saying and doing. But okay.
Well, you know what? I want peace in this country. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
let's talk about the peace.
Peace. We want peace.
Like Tupac said, will there ever be peace in the Middle East?
It looks like there is. There is peace in the Middle East, as far as
Somewhat.
So Trump announces just a few moments ago that he hosted a very special call with two friends, the Prime Minister Benjamin, I'm going to botch his name.
Netanyahu, something like that.
Netanyahu of Israel, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed of the United Arab Emirates, where they agreed to finalize a historical peace agreement. So yeah, it seems that there's some peace there. Now, I was concerned because I don't know if you've seen it. I posted something on Instagram, and I actually tagged you in it about this peace deal and how a lot of Christians are thinking this is prophetical, and everybody was talking about it. And I was questioning it because I was like, hey, what does this mean? Is this the peace deal that you always talked about it, where you've said,
it's not
peace
the one,
deal?
though. It's not the one that we're looking for.
Why don't we talk a little bit about this, but also how prophecy. So what peace deal, as far as Christians are concerned, should we be looking for?
It's the one that allows the temple to be built.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yep, that's one of the criteria. Yep. There's a few criteria.
I think it's in the right direction. I'll let Valdo speak to this.
So this one is historic in the sense that there's never been a peace deal done with the Arabs and the Jewish people it's a diplomatic kind of thing that allowed them to have diplomatic relationship. But like Matt said, it is a step in the right direction because it may allow other groups of people in that area to come along. But the group of people that we're looking for to come along will be the Palestinian people. Right now, the Palestinians feel betrayed by the Arab Emirates. They feel betrayed by them. But prophetically, they'll come around. But this sets the way now for other people to come along.
Okay.
What we're looking for in prophecy is, like Matt said, the temple will be rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
The Abrahamic covenant will be confirmed. One of those people that will confirm it will be the Antichrist. Meaning, what's the Abrahamic covenant? The land that God originally gave to Abraham, the borders and the outline. The other thing that we're going to look for too is the Israelites will be a minority. So they're going to give, I think, a couple of their land. One of them, I believe, is Gaza, to the Palestinians. Yep. And there'll be a shared temple arrangement.
Which makes me think, because we know that Trump is not in favor of that. So it makes me think that maybe that will be a time, maybe Trump is laying down the foundation where other Arab nations will begin to have peace deals with Israel, but then maybe we get a Democrat administration like the Obama administration that was heavily in favor of the Palestinians and was pushing for Israel to give up its lands. I don't see the current Israel being open to that. Maybe it's going to take another Democrat administration to kind of seal that portion of the deal. Maybe I'm wrong.
Or it could take a major catastrophe like a war.
Right. That's true.
That will be so bad that people are going to beg for any type of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I tend to lean towards.
Yeah, war.
Something major.
Well, when they say peace, there's war. So, I mean, it's very, as far as biblical is concerned. But as far as that specific prophecy, I don't think that a lot of Christians were just jumping right away to it. And I wanted to just clarify that. So I hope we got some clarity.
Yeah, I think there are some that do. I'm personally not big on the world is ending, that type of stuff. That's not me. God will come when God comes. I don't think it's not something that I personally worry about. Mm-hmm. If I'm ready, I'm ready. But I'm planning to live out my days for as long as God will tarry. If that's 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, whatever. That's kind of my way of thinking. But I like studying like the Book of Revelation, but I don't. Every time I see news like this, I don't go, oh, the end is near. God is coming right now. That's just not me.
Yeah. Neither is it. Neither do I do that. I'm just like
Yeah, I'm not knocking anybody who does that or preaches that way.
No. I think we should be ready at all times. That's what the Bible says. We should be ready to be raptured at all times. But I just also don't feel like we should be paranoid.
But I remember watching a YouTube video of older preachers like in the 1970s, and in their messages they'd be like, "Oh, the end is near. The end is near," and it's like, to me, it's just something that's always been said because we don't know when God is actually coming back. So it's easy to say it, but it's not how I live. We should always be ready to meet God no matter what. I think that's more the mindset we should have, as opposed to, oh, God, the world is ending, so now I'm going to be ready.
Yeah, so let's just stuff all of our stuff in the closet and just get our spirituality in check right away.
And I'm not knocking anybody who believes that or preaches that.
Yeah, it almost seems like, it can also be taken as like, oh yeah, like if you're always looking at the end, looking for the end, it's like kind of like you're just always like anticipating something to happen, and you get let down when the stuff that you wanted to happen doesn't happen. Like, you know what I mean? So I just think that as far as Christians are concerned, I feel like this is a step in the right direction.
It is. And
I think that we will see that peace deal between the Palestinians and that temple being built soon if this continues the way it's continuing.
Right. I mean, and I agree with what Matt's saying. Like, I don't live like that either. Like, I'm thinking every event that happens, I only look for one event. It is the peace deal, the one that is described in the Bible. Because that is the exact timeline. It has an exact timeline to it, which is 7 years. Okay? Yes. Because in the middle of that 7 years, and this is right in prophecy, from when that peace deal is made, in the middle of that sets off 7 years. In the middle of that 7 years, that's what the abomination which make it desolate that Jesus talked about will happen, where the Antichrist will go to the temple and stop the evening sacrifice. So when I see the peace deal, yeah, then I take that seriously. But everything else, like you said, I don't because I'm not seeing what prophecy said would happen yet.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing chaos and people fear mongering. I have to see
Right.
exactly what the scripture
And
says.
people will bring up like the natural disasters and
Yeah.
plagues and things like that. But I mean,
And those are just contractual.
that's stuff
Those are
that's
just
always
contract.
happened.
Yeah,
Always.
those are just preliminary things that will happen in the end times.
But my Christian brothers and sisters, I would say just be ready at all times. We should
Yeah.
always be ready, guys.
That's the thing.
I
ready.
always say whether you're pre-trip or post-trip, you always be ready because you never know when you're going to die anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
never know when you're gonna die. And for you, if you're a sinner, I'm just gonna bring out my Acts 2:38, man. Just you need to get baptized in Jesus' name, filled with the Holy Ghost,
Yes.
and repent of your sins, man. So get ready. The Lord certainly is on His way, and what's happening in this world today is surely evidence of that.
And if you're a Democrat, you definitely need to get baptized in Jesus' name repent of your sins, and come to the Holy Ghost.
So,
Hey,
yeah.
it works. I used to be one.
So was I. I was a Democrat myself, or I felt I didn't really know much about politics, but I sure was left leaning because everybody around me was pretty much left leaning. So, but God is good, and I'm so happy to have been able to do a show again. I'm so happy to be back, and if you're tuning in, thank you again, and we'll be back soon. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say.
Nope, I'm good.
I'm good.
Well, peace out, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon. God bless.